All right, guys. Hey, thanks and welcome back here to Whiskey and Wolves. My name's Evan. I'm the master trainer over here at K-Pro Canine. Joining me, as always, is the illustrious
and beautiful
and gorgeous Christopher Lamy from Canine Coaching with Chris. We're here to debunk the bunk and dog training and drink a little whiskey along the way. Speaking of whiskey, man, why don't you give us a little, I know that we've got this whiskey from 7-3 Distilling in today. Tell me about this bottle you picked up for us on the way.
So we've had 7-3 Distillery before.
We have. We love
this.
Them.
Is not cheating. We had Irish Channel, and it's been one of our favorites. I think we had it twice because we had a reshoot. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's too good though.
The 7-3 Distillery idea is so freaking cool because there's 73 neighborhoods in New Orleans, and they have 73 different spirits that they make.
Yeah.
And the first one we had was Irish Channel. It's one of my favorites. Today we have something super cool.
Yeah.
Almost dropped an F-bomb there already.
Right off the rip. Dude.
So this is called the Whiskey Tree. So I'm gonna read this off of here so I don't mess it up. It's a very, very cool story. It is a true story. And it goes into history of both bourbon, whiskey, and Louisiana.
It gives me President Kennedy feels.
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, I mean, John F.
Oh, I guess there was only one.
Only the one, bro. Yeah, president.
Yeah, so far.
All right.
RFK, rooting for you.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right. Whiskey Tree.
This is called the Whiskey Tree. The idea is, or the story is, I'm going to read it straight off of here. At the height of Prohibition, deep in southern Louisiana swamp, there was a secret meeting place known by moonshiners simply as the Whiskey Tree. Far from the grasp of any official, small numbers of boats gathered under this bald cypress tree late into the night. With few words spoken, they were all bonded by the desire to stay one step ahead of the law. So that really does speak to the history, not only of Louisiana, but of alcohol and how it is part of our culture down in Louisiana and as Americans. I think it's very, very cool. I have tried this before. I don't remember it. I'm pumped for you to open it up because I don't trust myself. And give it a shot.
Dude, I'm going to tell you why you were reading that. Anybody who's listening or, viewing this, if you remember Princess and the Frog, that Disney movie.
Love that movie.
I had feels of like Mama Odie's tree right there.
So that's a real thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I can take you to see that actually. It's near my parents' house.
Yep. And so I know that that's like a local, hey man, like they came down here, they went out, right? I wonder if that's like a whiskey tree too.
I would be very interested to see the history and see if there are still living whiskey trees.
Yeah.
And see if this, just to go out there and be part of that would be very cool. Again, it's part of our culture.
Yeah.
Alcohol, especially in Louisiana, is part of our culture. Let's give it a shot.
Lots of folks don't understand. Oh, thank you, man. Oh, nose that up, man.
That's a bourbon. That's heavy. That is good. That is deep.
Lots of like little peaty notes in there with some caramel on the backside. Really, really sweet, right?
Really sweet, but in a heavy way.
Right? Not really over smoked, but like thick on the palate.
But definitely got some smoke. Man, that's good.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I really like the balance of that particular whiskey.
This is a little different than anything we've had so far.
It is.
It's a little heavier, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all.
I mean that in like a
still
rich
sitting
way.
on my tongue. It's still sitting there pretty good. That's very, very yummy.
I would say it's like rich, like a really rich bourbon.
Yes.
Really
very
good.
much so. Just sits there for a little bit. Lets you know it's there. That is very yummy. Again, 7-3 Distillery. They're in New Orleans. Fantastic company, wonderful brewmaster or whatever it's called. I don't think it's a brewmaster. Distiller.
Master
really,
distillers.
really great informationally guy, a smart guy. Check it out. Let's get into dog training.
Yeah, man. So what we have for you guys today is we're actually going to be responding to a comment that asked us, hey, can you just talk a little bit about how to set dogs up well for training based on breed and a little bit of purpose and that kind of thing? Like, can you talk about how this works out? And so we wanted to respond to that today. So if you're out there and that you asked that question, this one's for you, man, for sure.
I'm gonna point you out. Tony Friday, Love you, man. Great question. Tony Friday and I were dog handlers together in Georgia.
No way, huh?
One of my favorite humans ever.
I love this dude.
Another person that sent in a question. I won't say her name.
Soul Aperture.
Yes.
I think this really pulls into her idea. So thank you for this, because this is going to be fun to talk about.
Yep. We worked at Marine Life together, her and I, and a long time ago. And she does some really, really cool work. Her and her dog actually spend a lot of time in the swamps. So yeah, thank you for the questions. Anyone else, if you have more questions, please send them our way. Yeah, and we'll certainly address them.
Again, we want to know what you want to know about, and take this for what it is. We're just kind of starting to work through some of these questions as they come in. And so please, like, subscribe, follow, comment down below, leave us those questions. We'll get to them as soon as we possibly can. Right. So without further ado, man, let's get into training based on breed. I think this is going to be like a really, really cool conversation today. We know that breed has like a lot of emphasis on, how dogs behave, what they were originally bred for, really informs their intrinsic behavior today through the process of domestication. So let's get in there, man. Go ahead, kick us off.
What we're essentially talking about here is the history of dogs, right? Mm-hmm. And dogs have evolved alongside humans for so long that their psychology, it doesn't match ours. But it does kind of mirror ours, and it kind of parallels ours. But dogs have been such an integral part of our lives for so long because they are so useful, because of the amount of purposes that we can give them and the amount of tasks and jobs that we can give them. And they can be kind of like what we talked about in a previous episode. You can have a dog that is what we call a force multiplier. Right. Yeah. And whether you have a false multiplier on the battlefield or when herding dogs or on a farm or wherever,
or even in service application, right? Where it's like, hey, it would be cool to have all this gear run around with me all day that could predict a thing, or I could have a dog.
So you're talking about medical applications. Yes. And that's something that's really exciting in present and future as far as dog jobs go, is dogs can literally sniff and smell certain diseases, right? Sometimes even before they show symptoms, absolutely, in the human body. So this is, when we talk about dogs and we talk about these different jobs they have, we're not just talking about tricks.
No,
right?
We're not talking about
training. We're talking about real useful skills. And there's a few different categories, and we broke them down ourselves, and then we also added in what the AKC describes as far as the different categories of working breeds, right? Yeah. And so let's label them off real quick. For the AKC, we have
sporting breeds, hound breeds, working group, the terrier group, the toy group, the non-sporting, and the herding, right? I would say that these are groups developed for a dog show. Would you?
Yes, the AKC is known for dog shows, right? Not only, but
pedigree.
But pedigree, right? Yes. And so when you get a dog, it's not, unless you go to a breeder, you may not be getting a Dalmatian, right? You may be getting a Dalmatian mix.
Yeah, exactly.
But knowing the breed breakdown of what you have really can help that dog fit into your home a little bit easier. Right. There are certain jobs, such as we talk about German Shepherds a lot.
Yeah.
Right. German Shepherds, initially their name entails they were shepherding dogs, but what have they been used for within the last 200 years?
And what does it mean to shepherd? Right. So like this is an interesting conversation that I was having with somebody the other day, where I was like, what does that really mean? Right. I know what herding competition look like. I know what this idea of being a shepherd is, right? But in application, I don't know about you, but in Afghanistan, man, I've seen dogs who are out with Bedouin tribes among the sheep, and I know what their job is.
It's incredible to watch, especially when you get a dog that is really honed into their job.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, and today, probably here in the States, probably the easiest engagement that we have with this, because there's been a couple of documentaries that highlight these things and a couple of TV shows that highlight these things, is like what we use Great Pyrenees for today. So like a lot of folks raise Great Pyrenees with the flock still, right? And so like these dogs never come inside. They're never house dogs. They're never fur babies. They're never pets, right? These are working animals who live, eat, breathe, sleep, sheep, goats, that kind of thing, right? And their job is to keep the flock safe. So when we look at, like German Shepherd dogs at one time were in the field with the sheep, really specifically, keeping at bay the predator, the
keeping
predators
at bay
that were
the
there.
predators, right? And we've kind of and German Shepherds are interesting because of that history, because of that lineage. They've done that job, and then we said, "Oh, you know what? You're really good at this. Let's try a couple other things."
Well, I think they spent so much time with the shepherds. Now, this is an interesting idea, right?
I love to hear it.
Yeah, but this is an interesting idea to me. They spent a lot of time with the shepherds, and the shepherds went, "Man, you got smarter and more adept at doing your job."
They're very adaptable creatures, dogs.
And then like people do, I think they started to innovate a little bit and go, what if you also did this? What if I could also do this with you? What if I could also do that?
Well, and you're also hinting at selective breeding, right?
Sure.
Which has been going on for a long time. Hey, this dog is really good at protecting, right? This dog barks at everything. Whereas this dog has let something creep up. I'm going to let that one.
Hey, he's not such a good protector, right?
But you're going to mate, right? And we're going to get more of you. And you're right. They've kind of specifically designed these breeds.
It's a eugenic model, right? And we don't like to use that word because it was associated in the Second World War with some really atrocious behavior by humans, right? And
we're known for a lot of that.
Man, seriously, but like blessings to those who were the victims of some of those atrocities. But like we think of it and we go, yeah, this is a eugenic quality, right? In every breed, every dog that has a pedigree has been subjected to eugenics, right? And how we engage that is just as important as anything, right? So one of the things that through research we've really started to understand is that it is actually deleterious to breeding to choose a single trait to breed upon.
Explain that word deleterious for me.
Yeah, so like it actually degrades the entire process and leads to more problems than it's worth, right? So, for instance, there was a study, and I could reference this book called Animals in Translation with Temple Grandin, where she talks about, I think it was Purdue or Tyson, and they wanted to breed bigger boiler chickens, right? Because like bigger boiler chickens means more meat means easier work for them, that kind of thing, right?
I've seen Sanderson farms.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? In some of the ways that we have commercial farming and generation of, what we imbibe, right? But in this particular idea, their only criteria for breeding was to breed the biggest ones.
Got it. Yep.
And what ended up happening is an ancillary kind of outcome is that aggression also formed
when you're
with that
looking
size.
For this one thing, you're ignoring all of these others. Right.
And so like we ended up with an overwhelming amount of aggression. And I won't use this word because it's really, sensitive to some folks, but what she ended up with, and I'll use an alternate word and you'll know what I mean in a second, is what they ended up with. And, through study at that farm was what we call grape roosters, right? They would literally breed the hens to death. And like they had to cull the whole experiment from on the farm because it did not lead to the ability for continued procreation on the farm because like these particular birds that had a single trait breeding metric literally ended up being completely, and again I'll use that word, deleterious to the entire process, where like it disrupted the entire flow of what was going on. It was an unintended outcome. And while they got the size they wanted out of some of them, they came along with this aggression. And that's a really, really important idea in dog, like breeding and training, raising, rearing, right? Is that just because you have a dog and he's cute, right, doesn't mean that he needs bread either.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for saying that.
In the working dog community, I push back on guys who go, well, this dog works and that dog works. I don't care about pedigree. I want dogs that work. That's a single trait breeding metric. You have no idea what you could be producing. The same thing in the doodle community.
The biological consequences, right? Biodiversity is a thing. Biodiversity is a very important thing. Isn't that good? Yeah. And so when these selective breeds,
right,
you can breed in certain negative qualities. You're also breeding out positive qualities. You're also, in a weird way, giving them a disadvantage to their immune system, if you will, right? There's a lot of negatives to selective breeding, and you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had an example that I wanted to talk about, but I think more importantly, I think the way we want to gear this conversation is, how do we take what we have, right,
use it
with all those traits that they have. Take German Shepherd dogs, for example, right? They have been bred for a specific purpose, right? They have been bred, German Shepherd dogs have been bred to say, hey, you sit here, and when you see something, hear something, smell something, you bark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what they've been bred for. And they're great at it.
They're super great at it.
And if you don't manage that, if you don't manage those instincts and kind of gauge, or not even gauge, but funnel them in a productive way, give your dog a productive way to hit those instincts, it can get out of control and lead to reactivity and even upwards of aggression, right? Because when a dog starts barking, Newton's third law, an object in motion is going to stay in motion, correct?
I love this guy.
So,
guys, I love this guy. I say that stuff all the time. I don't even think he knows I say that stuff. Go ahead.
I listen to you mostly.
Oh, sometimes.
But we need to understand that, again, and I'm not picking on the German Shepherd, but they're a great example, right?
Yeah.
You bring this
Really
dog in
common
here,
example.
and we both get a whole lot of German Shepherds, and like, they won't stop barking and digging and clawing. Like, well, yeah. Do you know what that dog is made for?
Right.
Like, they're made for all of the things they're doing.
Yeah. One of the things I think about often whenever I think about, training based on purpose, right, is this idea, and man, we talk about this with our clients all the time at K-Pro, is Socrates' allegory of the cave.
Oh, I love that. I was just, please explore.
Yeah. So Socrates' allegory of the cave essentially says this. For those of you who don't know what's going on, I'm gonna give you the Cliff's Notes version, Evan's version of Socrates' allegory of the cave real quick, right? So
Socrates, Plato,
Evan. That's right. So if you chained me facing the back of a cave, and all I knew of life were the shadows that I saw, right? So like things cross in front of the cave and they throw a shadow in during the day, right? If that became my entire reality,
that's all you ever knew.
That's all I ever knew, right? And then one day you came in and unhooked me and turned me around and brought me into modern life, right? I would reject it as reality.
Yes.
Right. I liken that to a dog, regardless of the breeding emphasis, right? Regardless of breed, that gets brought into somebody's home and spends 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in their house, in their backyard only. Right. So like,
oh man. Okay. I don't know. Evan just said he loved me. I don't know if you guys understand how deep this conversation just got. If you have not understood the cave reference, please go look it up. It's insanely informative and beautiful and a really great way to
couch a lot of discussions.
Just look it up. But you hit on something beautiful, right?
Thanks, man.
You get these dogs in here. And again, we're on the Shepherd. We can use the Shepherd. We can use an Aussie. We can use a Jack Russell Terrier. Right. Any of these dogs that are bred for specific purposes.
Yeah.
There is not a dog in this entire world that has been bred to be sedentary and solitary. Right.
Well,
some of them have been bred to be independent
or companions,
but not
completely sedentary.
But not sedentary.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Right. They need to run. They need to work. They need mental and they need physical stimulation. So if you take these dogs that have been for thousands and thousands of years been bred for the dog that is more active and that is more intelligent, right? And you take them into an apartment or a home with a backyard, doesn't matter. And you say, hey, guess what? Our life is watching TV, and then I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to come home. I'll wake up, we'll go on a walk, and then you're going to sit here while I'm at work, and then we're going to hang out and watch TV. That doesn't jive. Bro,
we call it at K-Pro. This is my favorite thing that I think I've ever did. Like in all the things that I've done in dog training, this is the thing that if this is my legacy, I am winning in my mind. And some people may look at this and go, you're freaking insane. And I'm okay with that. But we call it blue and green therapy. Your dog needs to get out under the blue sky and in the green grass on a regular basis. It is ethologically sound. This is where they're supposed to be in their natural environment. those of you who know me like deeply and have been to my place know that like I leave vast swaths of my grass uncut so that my dogs can experience a more natural, portion of my property. I live on a couple acres and like I leave like whole portions of it. Like my dad was a science teacher whenever I was growing up, right?
Love
and
that.
and he came out here and he goes, a pollinator garden. How cool. Please don't cut it until, and I'm like, I get it. The bees need to be here too, Dad. I'm here for that. But really, I do this so that my dogs have the opportunity and availability to lay in the tall grass in the morning and sun themselves with a bed of grass. Like I look out my window and I see my two Malinois literally almost every morning laid in this tall grass under the blue sky, like just enjoying the world as it exists. And man, like I think that's really important to the conversation.
It's important in a number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs have so much to teach us. And everything you just said is a giant portion of what dogs need to teach us.
Yeah.
You think dogs are the only ones that need blue and green therapy?
Oh no!
I'm wearing grounding shoes.
I know. I know. Look, for those of you who don't know, in the dog training community at some very high level, we get metaphysically weird, right? Like it's like, no, you don't understand, man. I'm connected here and I'm connected there, and I have these tendrils that reach out into the universe, and I understand my position in it, and the way that I interact with dogs is informed by my position. Would you agree to that idea? With some nuance, maybe?
I agree. I told you just last week, like I feel like I talk to God when I am training, when I'm like really zoned in and I'm really just with that dog, right?
In what some people would call a flow state.
Flow state. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You can call it any number of things you want to call it, right? But I go back to the main idea. Dogs have so much to teach us.
Yeah.
If we just slow down and listen, they will tell us. Your dog will tell you how they want to be trained.
Not only how they want to be trained, right? But like how they want to live. What's important to them.
And that's a very good point, right?
Yeah.
I don't advocate for my clients to go home and train their dogs.
Me neither.
No. Go home and teach your dog how to live in your life. Go home and communicate to that dog with boundaries, with the I'm going to reward this behavior and I'm going to give you a consequence for this behavior, right? Go home and teach that dog in the same way that you teach your kids how to live in your household. But back to the topic that we're on today, you have to understand, if you want to make your job easier, you have to understand what your dog has inside of them driving them, right? Because when we talk about when we talk about these different breeds and what they were bred for, we're talking about their predisposition. We're talking about the drives that are innate in them, and we're talking about things that they can't comprehend in the same way we do. They just feel it, right? A herding dog, an Australian Shepherd, right? Or any number of them, an Australian Shepherd is gonna run around and herd your kids.
Oh, 100%.
They're gonna.
Australian cattle dogs, the main dog that I get calls for that are like, they're nipping at my kids.
Yeah, no shit they are.
No kidding, right? Like they're massively cute dogs, man, but like this is what they were bred for. And whenever they see an uptick in arousal in their state, right, their job is to bring balance back to that. How are they going to do it? With the way that they have, right? Dogs don't have hands. They go to mouth for those ideas.
They've been trained. They're not even trained. They've been inbred. They've been bred for that.
Genetically, the way that I describe that is genetically predisposed.
Great.
Right?
Yes. Great way to say it.
And I make the argument that even humans have genetic predisposal.
1,000%.
You know?
Yep, 1,000%. And when we say this, right, we're talking about herding dogs like, oh, they're gonna nip your kids. That doesn't mean it's okay.
No.
Right? It's just one of those things that you have to understand. You don't jump all over that dog for, oh, you bit my kid. No. Understand what that dog is doing. That dog is working, right? Give them an alternative way to alleviate that energy, right?
Man. Yeah.
There's a word for that.
It's called drive expression. It's my favorite idea, right? So like I do a lot of things in dog training, but one of the first things that we do is square away husbandry. I want to make sure that the way that you're living with your dog in your home is conducive to the dog's ethological nature, right? So ethology is the study of natural behavior. I want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to create den spaces in home, to create things that are actually helpful for your dog's psychology in your home. We start there, right?
And let me take a time out real quick. People do not like change.
Oh,
right?
man.
People do not like change. This does not take a whole lot to do, right? When you bring a child into your home, there are changes that have to be made.
Right.
When you bring a dog into your home, there are certain changes you have to make. That doesn't mean you need to completely flip your lifestyle. That doesn't mean you need to start doing a whole bunch of things that you weren't already going to do. But you're right.
To a degree, yeah.
You do, if you want to have a symbiotic relationship, which is what we have, right? Like the bees and the flowers. If you want that symbiotic relationship and you want it to be easy and fun and easy, right?
Right.
You need it behooves you as the leader of this relationship to have an understanding of what is driving your dog.
Here's the favorite way that I think about it, right? So if you are a person who keeps a fish tank, for instance, right? You know that in order to keep fish, you need a habitat for them that is well balanced and is conducive to their life, right? So
you put a freshwater fish in a saltwater tank,
he dies, right? You know what I mean? Additionally, some fish need a good hide. You need to make sure that the water is balanced well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, people like me who keep fish, right? Like this is almost like a science experiment inside your home, right? And some folks, will go to extremes for that. Like I've known folks over the years, like in the fish side of what I've done with my life, right, that have 300-gallon tanks in their house, right? Like it's like a mini national aquarium kind of a situation in there, right? Like,
all I think is Ace Ventura,
right? Like unbelievable. And they have these massively rare fish that are worth, tens of thousands of dollars, and they're beautiful and all these things are cool, right? I love that. I think that's very, very cool. However, right? In order to do that, you had to understand what that fish needed in order to thrive and grow and be good, right?
Yep, love it.
People look at dogs often like an accessory to their lifestyle.
Yes.
Right? And that's an unfortunate understanding of what dogs are, right? When we look down deep at what a dog needs in order to be happy and well fulfilled, we need to make some changes probably in our life. If we've never lived with a dog, especially, we need to do some research to figure out like what dog I even want to live with. I may want to live with a non-sporting breed, right? Like I've got this bulldog in my house that's just the cutest thing, right? She's great. Her name is Siege, by the way. But she's a great dog and she's really super sweet. And man, she has no real desire to do anything past a little spring pull, a little bitey game, maybe a little tug, right?
And put her nose in your crotch.
And hang out with you as much as possible.
Yep. Be as close as possible.
Like, let me know who you are. Like, let me hang out with you. Let me be groovy. Let me come pull up next to you on the couch and cuddle the heck out of you. I mean, this dog is a positive pressure dog is what I call him, right? Like the dog that leans hard into everybody she meets, you know what I mean? And is like, you're probably cool. Can I hang out? You know what I mean? And so, but that's who she is.
Even if you're not, just let me love on you like we are.
And at 9 years old, she's allowed to do whatever she wants in my house, for the record, because she's earned it. You know what I mean? Agreed. She's a great dog.
1,000%.
There's a place where dogs become a little geriatric, where like things go, oh, we need to start to pay attention.
And that age is different for every dog.
It
right?
is.
And then that kind of goes back to our point as well. Is some dogs you start training a little earlier,
right?
Age wise. Some dogs you at a certain point you're like, okay, buddy, just go lay down.
Just relax, right?
Just go lay down.
And so it's really interesting, to get back to this idea of training based on breed, you want to meet that breed where they are, So like one of the first things that I did for my bulldog, and take this for what it is, if we go back in the formation of that breed, right? Like they were bull baiting dogs. That's a horrible practice that's been outlawed.
There have been a lot of horrible practices.
Sure. Yeah. And that's been outlawed here in the United States since about, circa 1835 or so was the practice of bull baiting, kind of poo-pooed, right? So to speak. And so, but in that practice, they thought that, hey man, it was good to bet on whether or not dogs could take down a bull. It was thought that a bull that was baited was actually more tender upon slaughter, which that sounds like garbage.
Have you ever
to
had
me.
Kobe beef?
Right? No,
Pretty tender.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right.
And they weren't bit.
They weren't
like
bit,
massaged.
right? Exactly.
And fed
right.
beer.
They were,
Delicious.
they were laid in a sling and like anyway. But the point is this, right? Is that from the very early point, I really tried to allow my dog the amount of drive expression in jumping up, grabbing, holding with the use of a spring pull, specifically so that she could express some of that drive
as a way to get her energy out, fulfill her instincts, and give her a reward. I'm guessing.
Bro, that's drive
Right?
expression.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you just gave what I would consider like the definition of drive expression.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? Because like
I didn't know that, by the way, but
no, it's perfect, right? Like this is real time, guys, here on Whiskey and Wolves, hang out every time. Anyway, but no getting
I'm just
like
super
that's
smart.
dude. Exactly. And just gorgeous as it turns
Well,
out.
thank you.
Anyway, one of the things that I find really, really helpful is giving the amount of drive expression that dogs need in order to imbibe training, right? So like if the dog's mind is all kinds of frenetic and wonky,
You
right?
use a lot of big words. I love them, but be mindful. You're smarter than most people.
Sorry. But like if the dog is frantic and
we go.
you know, kind of jumping all over the place, like it's hard for him to learn, right? So we've got to express some of that innate drive in order to get there is where we were before the break.
So, and I'll take this little opportunity. This is a little off of what we're talking about, but you hit on something very important right there, right? If dogs are exciting creatures.
They really are.
They're
yeah.
exciting and excited.
Yeah.
And excitable, right? They get very excited and for a lot of reasons.
All kinds, yeah.
When they get to a point of overexcitement, they're not listening.
No, they're gone.
They're not able to listen.
No.
Right. And so when I guess to tie this back into the topic we're talking about, you have certain breeds that instinctively just get lost.
Sure.
Right. In herding or in protecting or in finding or in hanging out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you, as a trainer, it's imperative for us to understand like, okay, I know where you're going. Right. I know where your head's at. I know what you're doing. But I need you to come back.
Sure.
Right. I need you to do this because you're not in that world. You live in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
You live in my house.
Yeah. You're an Australian cattle dog that lives in, 700 or less square feet.
Right.
Man, that owner is going to have to be doing some serious drive expression on the outside of the home in order for that dog to live well on the inside.
And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, right? Because one of the things that we haven't really in-depthly hit on yet, but we will, is the difference between physical stimulation and mental stimulation, right? Mental stimulation, everybody knows your dog needs to run. And if you don't know that, you do now.
Your dog needs to run.
He
needs to run. He needs to do whatever he wants to do on a regular basis. I make the argument in a natural environment, in the woods, at the beach,
with all those
in the
smells.
desert.
Oh my God, yes.
You know what I mean? Like we call them sniffaries.
Well, and you've used a really, really great analogy of like the tree and the chair.
Oh
right?
man, that's Mary Oliver, man. I can't take credit for that, but Mary Oliver. To put it on your, to put it on your radar, right? Like Mary Oliver wrote a book called Dog Songs. She was a poet, very, very famous poet. And she wrote, a dog on a leash, in the city park is what a tree is to a chair.
Yeah.
Right. Like these things are of the same essence, but one of them is massively, massively different than what it was supposed to be.
And restricted is the word I use. And there's a reason, right? Your dog, I'm not advocating for off-leash dogs. The leash is a very great tool and a great tool for learning. It's important. It's especially important in this environment.
Yeah.
But the idea that you can give your dog all the things they need, including the ability to run freely, right? And to think freely. You can give your dog that, but you have to understand first where they're coming from, right?
Sure.
Which is the topic of this day, of this podcast, is what is your dog thinking? What has your dog been bred to do?
Sure.
What do they need from you, right?
Because a Malinois needs something different than a Pit Bull, needs something different than a Shih Tzu,
Or a
needs something
Maltese,
different,
right.
than a Maltese or a Coton de Tulier or whatever other weird little crazy breed you got.
And
right?
regardless of what breed you have,
Yeah.
you are building a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? When you bring this dog into your home in the same way that when you bring a child into this world, you're forming a relationship.
Yep.
And you are the leader of that relationship.
I would agree.
That doesn't mean you need to be the alpha, right? I'm not going to, you do what I say because I say I'm the alpha. No. But you are the leader of that relationship.
That's a dictator.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can be a leader and you can be a kind and generous and loving and yet not strict, but
Boundaried
and firm
Yeah.
leader. And honestly, that's what a lot of these dogs need. Most
Sure.
of these dogs that we have on this list, right? We have working dogs, hound dogs, terriers, herding, sporting, protection dogs,
They
right?
need a structure in which to live.
Yes, they need structure. They need guidance. One of the biggest issues that I see coming through my program are people that don't want to tell their dogs no.
Oh, 100%.
You can spoil a dog so easy.
We call
Right?
it neotenization
Neotenization.
in a clinical sense. Yeah.
Ooh, work that out.
So like neotenization is the idea of creating or sustaining like a babyhood, right? So like these are the clients that we get.
Okay, neo.
Right.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
seeing it. Yeah.
Right. These are the clients that we get that call us and they're like, "Hey, my dog keeps biting me," and we show up and it's because we're putting 4 tutus and running them around in a stroller all day. I bet your dog is biting,
And you're
you for
not
that.
telling them no,
Right.
In a way that they understand.
But even past that, right? Like you didn't do any training for that. You're just infringing the dog's agency and ability for who they are. You're not giving them any kind of drive expression for what they are,
for what they need.
right?
Right.
Like these are the folks that baby doll dogs, you know what I mean? That actually hinder their soul's growth. And this is kind of a weird thing for me, right?
Okay.
But like,
whoa.
yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry. You said something I'm not going to let go. Say it again. You know what I'm hitting on.
Yeah, these are the folks that hinder the soul's growth, right? So like I believe that bad stress actually keeps us in place or actually pushes our soul's journey down. This is where we get a little weird sometimes in metaphysical senses, right?
So we're going to actually start talking dog training.
We are. We're going to get in here, right?
Okay.
So like, I want to bolster a dog's growth, right? I want to help the dog grow. There are practices that I can engage with every dog that can actually hinder that, right? So this is the idea between good stress and bad stress. Good stress is the stress that happens to all of us in life that creates growth. It creates more peace. It creates diligence, all these good words that we like, endurance, perseverance, good stress creates those things, right? And we need to give opportunity for dogs, right? To have good stress in their lives and really help grow their spirit, their soul.
Rise to the occasion.
Rising to the occasion. Yeah.
Without the occasion, there's no need to rise.
Right. So we've got to give them a little stress to induce that growth, right? I think that's a massively important idea, right?
I agree. I tell my clients all the time, like, you know what I'm going to do with your dog? I'm going to put them into uncomfortable situations over and over and over again, after they understand the basic concepts.
Sure,
right?
Sure, of course.
But once they understand the concepts of what I'm asking, I'm going to put them into uncomfortable situation after uncomfortable situation and help them learn how to manage that situation.
Not only that, but have a proactive response instead of a reactive response.
We speak the same language.
We do, man. We get in there, right? So, but like I really do. Oh, okay, you're drinking. I got to drink. Hold on,
you
guys.
can't cheers and not drink. Come on. We are Americans.
Oh man, that's good. All right. But you can't just stress a dog out for no reason. I see this faux pas in training always, right? Where regardless of the breed, we intend to put it in this box, right? Take this for what it is. I am famous for saying this. Not every dog can become whatever it is that you want it to become. Not every dog can be a protection dog. Not every dog can be a service dog. Not every dog can be an odor detection dog. Not every dog can do whatever
Not every dog can do
goal,
bite work.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Protection, whatever. Not every dog can do whatever crazy goal you hatched up for the dog. Right. The same way that, like, take this for what it is. As a really successful dog trainer, I will never be a mathematician. It's not in me. I don't have the aptitude or the skill set. I even to develop it sounds like the worst thing that you could put me through. You know what I mean?
You want to know what I wanted to be when I was in 8th grade?
Hit me.
A tight end.
Of course you did.
I weighed 95 pounds.
F yeah.
In 10th grade. I was tiny.
He said I weighed 95 pounds.
I didn't break 100 pounds. I'm not kidding you. My parents threw me a 100-pound party.
Bruh.
I'm not kidding you. I was tiny. I also think I was sick. That's a whole other story.
You were just a late bloomer, my friend.
I was a late bloomer. Yeah. I'm a slow learner.
Yeah. It
physically,
happens.
mentally, emotionally, all the ways. It's okay.
But take it for what it is. You know, like, so are our dogs, right? And
yes,
that's
they
the other
are.
thing is
they
taking your time, right? Taking your time with your dog. Transition. I'm here for it, dude.
Love it.
Okay, I'll bring it back up there.
Yep,
yeah.
Give me another one.
But, like, you know, taking your time with your dog, really understanding what that breed informs the dog to do, right? So if you have a herding dog, like, it is informed by herding tasks. If you have a working dog, right, out of the working group, you know, like, that's going to be informed by those tasks. Many people forget that Mastiffs were bred for things like carting and pulling and, you know, they were small horses. They were the poor man's horse, right? The merchant that needed to get his wares to the market, right? You know, that couldn't afford a horse could afford a 100-pound dog to cart his wares to the market. This is 200 years ago, right? But
those instincts are still there.
Not only that, but genetics don't change that quickly.
Yes.
We know from the Russian fox study, which we've aforementioned in many ways, right, that genetics don't change that quickly. And so, like, your English Mastiff or your Dog de Bordeaux may still be
Catahoula,
or you know, I mean, American Pit Bull Terrier, or a number of breeds that have genetic predispositions may still be expecting the yoke, you know, of the cart, you know, and we just don't have that, right? French bulldogs, for instance, most popular breed in America today, right? Like, is the French bulldog. That's the latest. How
can they not
breed.
be?
Bro,
look at them.
Are you kidding me? Those little bat ears and the smushy face and the mushy mush, right? But the ones that we see in training have problems.
They have some problems,
right?
Yes.
You know, the ones that we see in training, I think, are the ones that French merchants on their journeys on their carts, on their wagons, where these dogs were bred to sit and be on, right? These were the little bitty guardian dogs of these merchants that raised the initial alarm. Should anybody be there to theft their wares?
Yes, and they were bred, again, going back to something we talked about, 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, is they were bred for this very specific purpose.
Right.
So when you bring a Frenchie into your home, you need to understand what that purpose, not need to, it will help you.
I would say if
you understand what that purpose is, right? The Frenchies are unbelievably cute. They're tiny, they're great dogs, they're energetic, they're fun, but they have a specific personality to them.
Absolutely.
And if that personality doesn't match with what you have to offer, that's fine.
Sure.
But you're not going to have a very symbiotic relationship. You're going to bring a dog into your home that doesn't mesh with you.
But didn't you not long ago train a King Cavalier Charles Spaniel, something like that? I forget how those words interact. It's a cavy, right?
Love a King Charles.
Okay,
yes.
so here's the deal with the King Cavalier or King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. I think that's the way it's actually.
I think
said,
you're right. Yeah,
right?
I'm with you. It's like 7 words.
But here's the deal: they were bred to be companion dogs, right? So, like, as a companion dog, they're fantastic. Do they have some breeding, like hitches in their giddy up? They do. you know, like specifically with brain space.
Physically.
You know what I mean?
Physically, and which is starting to, what you're alluding to, which is starting to impact their mental,
I agree.
which is unfortunate. But
yeah, but take it for what it is. You know, I remember this story, right? Like we were sitting around having a few, right? Because believe it or not, guys, we drink off this podcast as well as on, right?
We drink a lot.
I'm not going to say we're drunks, right? But like we drink anyway.
We're really good at it.
And yeah, we are really good at it. And, you know, we hydrate. So it's good. But here's the idea is we were sitting around and we were having a few and you were like, dude, I just trained my favorite dog of all time. And I was like, dude, tell me about that. And you were like, dude, it's this Cavie and he was this and he was that and he was the next thing and blah, 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 blah. Right.
His name was Jazz.
God, I love that dog. Are you kidding me? If they're watching this, you got to send this to them because we said it. We said his name. So like now they get an engraved invitation to Whiskey and Wolves. However, here's the deal, right? Is that in that moment, how much drive expression did you need to do with a Cavie?
Zero.
Why?
Zero.
Why?
Because he just wanted to do what I asked him to do.
And why?
Because he has been bred to do that.
Up top. Right. And so like that's the idea.
That was shitty.
That was shitty. Give it up. There we go. But like no kidding. Shirt's tight. Get out of here. Your shirt's tight. Anyway, I wear baggy shirts, guys. I'm a fat guy. Anyway, but here's the deal, right? So like a Cavie was bred to be a companion animal. Being with you is drive expression
that is
for
their
a Cavie,
job.
right?
Yeah.
The same thing with the Shih Tzu, right? Like goes way back into I forget which dynasty in China where like they bred these dogs to sit on the emperor's lap and keep him warm in the winter. You know what I mean? Like this dog's whole drive expression set is sitting in your lap.
There,
you know what I mean? That's his drive expression. Meanwhile, if you have an American field version Labrador, right? Like, and you thought you were getting the English version in your house, you're calling us, you know, because the American
please
field,
help me.
Yeah, the American field version is almost, I say this almost, right? Almost like a Malinois with Lab's clothing on, right? It looks like it's friend shaped and friend colored, right?
But they just won't stop wiggling.
But they just won't stop moving, right? And so like you know, they become these little sharks in our houses anyway, right? And so, you know, I think it's really important to look at, you know, not only what the dog was bred for whenever we're training, but also like who was breeding the dog and what that breeding was geared toward.
So, and that's something very important that we haven't really hit on yet is the importance of breeding, right?
Yeah.
I personally, and this is a Chris thought, I think before you even discuss the idea of breeding or buying from a breeder, you should take a walk through your local humane society. That is a personal Chris thing. There's too many dogs out there.
There's way too many dogs out there.
However, when you grow up wanting a Great Dane, as my sister
I've always
did,
wanted
right?
one.
When you grow up needing to have a bulldog, right? Do your research on the breeder, right? Because those little bitty things we talked earlier today about how you breed for a specific thing. I want a white bulldog, right? Well, you're ignoring all of these things because of that white coloration.
Yeah.
And so it is very important if you are going to go for a specific breed, which I encourage, right?
Absolutely. We have breeds for a purpose, right? But again, looking at the purpose of that breed and past skin deep, right? Like we get a lot of folks that so this is I am not bagging my working dog community, man. I love working dogs. You know me, I'm a decoy. Like I like, you know, weirdly enough, I like getting bitten by dogs. Like I know
that's a whole lot of fun.
It is.
You should like it. It's fun.
It's a whole thing, right? But like, you know how many clients I get that call me and they have a working line, whatever that is, whether it's a working line German Shepherd or a Bouvier de Flanders, or I've got a working line Giant Schnauzer, or I've got a working line Doberman, or I've got, and they didn't realize that wouldn't make a great pet, right? When you hear the words, and this is something I want to say to everybody listening and watching, right? Like when you hear the words working line, understand that dog cannot pet at the same rate, at least at the bare minimum. That dog cannot pet at the same rate as a dog who is bred to be a pet. And these are different things that, you know, you asked me, and folks at home don't know this, right? But like, you know, you asked me earlier about a dog that I had in my house recently that was like a doodle, right? And you're like, hey man, how'd that doodle work out? And I'm like, actually, that dog was awesome. It reminded me what having a regular dog is like, because all my dogs, even my little bulldog, is technically kind of like a high drive bulldog.
Every one of my dogs are the hardest dogs I have. I have 4 of them, and they are the hardest dogs I have.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest compliment I think my kid's ever gotten in his entire life was when Sydney Michael came over and laid on him. You know what I mean? Wrapped himself around my kid. This is a dog, for those of you who don't know, who, you know, like is very person selective and like did not select me, but selected my kid.
Did he bite you?
No, he didn't bite me, but he didn't.
Then that's good.
He didn't bite me, but he hard stared me. And I went, I see you, buddy. And it's not a big deal.
Maybe
we
that's
can be
all he
friends.
needs.
That's what I'm saying. We can be friends from here. You know what I mean? But
I think Sydney Michael is very emotionally intelligent.
Massively.
And he is very
and I come in with all this.
You got a lot.
I got a lot, right?
Yeah, you got a whole lot.
And so that's not a bag on your training or your dog, right? That's to say that like some dogs who know who they are make selections of the people around them.
So that's funny that you bring that up, actually.
Yeah,
I was thinking about this today. You know, one of the things about being a dog trainer, and this is slightly off topic about what we're talking about today, but not really. One of the things about being a dog trainer is you really, really get to know dogs in the way that like you really get to know your best friends, right? Like the more we hang out, the more I get to know about you.
Sure.
The more you hang out with certain dogs, the more you know about them. And the more you hang out with dogs in general, right? We have a whole lot of dogs that we see from over years. The more you really get to see like, oh, okay, I see this in a dog and I see this in a dog.
Yeah.
There are certain dogs I don't like.
Bro. So I say it this way.
And that's an odd thing for me.
Yeah, but hear me out. I say it this way. Myers-Briggs breaks personality types into 16 types. And if you're curious about that, right, like 16types.com will take you to Myers-Briggs website where you can find out this is our kitty for
It's my favorite thing of all time.
Ice cubes, right? So like pay no attention, guys, while we refill.
If you're drinking whiskey or bourbon and don't have solid ice cubes like this, I'm not going to say you're doing it wrong. You're just missing
You're just missing out
That's
a little bit, right? Like I'm not going to look at you and go peasant, right? But like I'm going to go, dude, you don't know what you're missing.
And then we'll leave and say
peasant. No, I won't. All right. Anyway, but like, man, where was I? I just lost it because we were peasanting. That happens.
That's what happens when you judge people.
I know. Like freaking universe just got me on that one. What? Just say it out loud. My producer's looking at me trying to mouth the words. Just say it out loud so that I got it.
Myers-Briggs.
Oh, Myers-Briggs. That's right. All right. So Myers-Briggs has 16 types of people. And the way that I describe this is I don't get along with everybody all the time. And I think that there are probably about 16 types of dogs, right? And so there are some dogs that I'm like, dude, we jive, we coalesce, we hang out. This is where like doing, temperament testing for dog trainers, I find is like really kind of weird because you might just encounter a dog that's like, I don't like you, you don't like me, we don't want to hang out. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that dog's not cool with somebody else that you wouldn't hang out with.
Sure. Yeah.
1000%.
I've had dogs come through my program that's like, all right, yes, this dog is trained.
Yeah.
They did not enjoy this.
And so what I'll tell you,
not that I was mean or that they were bad or anything like that, but it's just like, yeah, I wouldn't like if I could do this over again. Like they didn't enjoy this.
There it is.
And like, and that really is, I guess, what we're to the crux of what we're trying to get at, right? Is if we want to train a dog, and I put air quotes for a reason, but if we want to train a dog to live with us, why would we not want to make it enjoyable for them?
Well, we would, but like we can't make it enjoyable for every dog. And this is where I'm really always happy.
But knowing what your dog brings to the table, right? And then taking a little like honest step back and asking what you bring to the table will make that journey of teaching that dog how to live in your home so much more enjoyable for you and them.
I agree. I'll say this though too, right? Like, and whenever I look at that situation, I also think to myself, this is why I say often, like, I don't want to be everybody's dog trainer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hang out with everybody who wants a dog trained. I had an experience recently where I met somebody who was obviously in training out in public. And it was in one of our areas, right? So like, we've got trainers in a couple of different states, that kind of thing, right? And it was in one of our areas. And I said, oh, it's great work. You did a great job. Like, wow, that was really cool, because like, I'm a dog trainer everywhere I go. Like, I don't put that hat on and walk out the door. Like, I'm just a dog trainer. Right. So like, I'm like, oh dude, can I say hi to your dog? Really cool dog. Like, look like you're having a great time. Like, looks like you're really doing some great work. Like, who are you training with? Because like, I could tell, the gear that was on the dog is dog trainer gear. Like, I'm like, I can tell that you're working with somebody. Right. And they looked at me and they were like, hey dude, like, I'm working with so-and-so. Right. And I'll give her a quick shout out, because Dana Brown's fantastic at Tandem Canine in Hilliard, Florida.
I don't know Dana.
But Dana's, yeah. We've talked about
Brown
Dana.
does great stuff.
She's
I've seen her on
amazing
social media.
work.
Yeah,
love
fantastic.
Dana.
Good job, Dana.
Dude, I would totally, like underscore this episode with hashtag Dana Brown, because I love her. And she's a great friend of mine.
Yeah, does great work.
And we work in the same area in like the Jack's Market, right? So, but like, this lady looked at me and she went, and Dana trains a little differently than I do. And, we train a little differently, and that doesn't mean that we can't be friends, right? But like, Dana trains a little differently.
I don't mind that I hang out with people that are wrong.
Sure. Like, it happens. It's okay that, you suck. But anyway, moving forward, right? Like, Dana, I know we look, guys, we beat on each other more than you know, but no kidding, right? Like, this lady looked at me and was like, hey man, I followed your company. I liked it. I watched it. And like, I went a different direction. And that's how she said it. And I looked at her and I went, I'm glad you found who you needed to be with.
Fuck yeah.
Because like, we've talked about selecting a dog trainer before, and I go back to that idea and go, I don't want to be everybody's dog trainer. The people that the universe puts in my purview, the people that, like come into our ideas, they're supposed to be there in my mind. You know what I mean? And there are people that like are so far divested from some of those ideas that like, it would be, and I'll use that big word one more time. It would be deleterious, right? Like, to continue engagement with somebody who you are so far apart from. I would agree also that, trying to fit certain breeds into the box that you want them to be in is just as deleterious as trying to stay in a relationship that's not working, right? I want clients of my company, and I'm sure that you can agree with this. I want clients of my company to be bought in on us. You know what I mean? The same way that you want, clients of canine, coaching with Chris, like to be bought in on Chris's ideas of what we do here.
And to get into business, right?
Yeah.
Like when you get into that aspect, you say that because it's important, right? I spend three weeks with a dog, and I teach them everything they need to know to fit into my household, right? And I take their traits and I give them everything that they need, and I teach them how to get everything they want.
Right.
That's essentially what my training program is about.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's 3 weeks out of a life of 15
lifetime.
Years.
Yeah.
Right. A dog, luckily, hopefully, will live 15 years.
Absolutely.
3 weeks is a very small amount of time. And so if I can't help you as a client continue that and continue giving this dog what they actually need, then it doesn't really matter.
No.
Right. And knowing what your dog needs is a very, very, I say crucial point. It's an important part. It's kind of everything.
Knowing that my bulldog needs to jump up and grab onto something to feel happy.
The way I like to think about it, and in humans, we talk about this all the time, right? As far as relationships, what's your dog's love language?
Oh, man.
Does your dog love to get petted on? Does your dog love treats? Do they love fetch? Do they love the toy?
Yeah.
What is it that they love more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we're to breeding, right? Shepherds love something different than Chihuahuas do.
Right.
Right. Or than Aussies than
watch
cattle
a bird dog and watch a bird dog point
or a GSP. Right.
Watch a bird dog point and realize that like that's that dog's whole desire.
That's their world.
Right.
And so how do you take that and fit it into your lifestyle.
Really interestingly, one person, and I'll leave nebulous, right? Like one person on my team right now has like a GSP puppy, and that puppy's pretty independent, right? Like most pointers are, right?
Yep.
Pretty independent, man. And like I watched that individual the other day at an event kind of get like a little frustrated because like that puppy was not having the engagement that they wanted, right? And I'm like, but recognize, and I took the time, because like this is my team, right? So like I took the time to walk over and go, I saw that you were frustrated, man. Like realize what you're working with, right? Yes, that dog has the desire and drive that makes it really good here. That doesn't mean that it's good for all things. And so, it's a really kind of an interesting idea. Like whenever you're looking at selection, especially of breed, look at your lifestyle and figure out what you want. Like that's training based on breed is
say that one more time.
Yeah. Look at your lifestyle and figure out what you want to do. Right. Because that's the whole ball game in a lot of respects, right? Like if your lifestyle is not conducive to having a high drive breed, please leave my Malinois alone. I say this every episode, but please leave my freaking breed alone. You know what I mean? Like my wife just flipped me off in the corner because she was like, hey, listen, like I did not ask for this. You did. Right. But like, you
got Malinois energy.
I do.
So you'll be okay.
Right. But like, no kidding. Right. Like I've got it. She's like, I had bulldog energy, my dude. Like I need you to know. Right. Like, and make sure that's conducive across the board too. You've gotten it. I've gotten it. Every dog trainer that's lived, that's worked has it, where, you show up to somebody's house, right? And they go, this is my husband's dog. This is my wife's dog. Look at your smile, right? Like I know that you've encountered that, right? Like this is my husband's dog. I don't really want anything to do with it. And it becomes like this fulcrum on which they balance their lives is this dog, right? And it's like, dude, why would you ever engage that much conflict? And then how do you expect to get a product out of conflict? Product of conflict in my mind is pain and hurt and more conflict. Right. So like find ways to dispel conflict, find ways to live in peace. And if that means that you can't have your dream dog, so be it. Like I have a deal with my wife. Right. And I think I've told you this before, Chris, but like I have a deal with my wife that like if at 50 years old, I look at my wife and I go, I think it's time for another Malinois, she gets to kick me square in the nuts with no repercussions, because the reality is that no one in my mind, and there are going to be haters in the comments on this. I'll double down on
that. I'll kick you too.
But like no one in my mind, over the age of 50, and there are exceptions, of course.
There are exceptions, but
there are exceptions,
yes.
Of course. And oftentimes those exceptions are, completely centered around
Casey.
Their dog. Right? No, not Casey. God knows Casey just has and you guys are going to know who this guy is, right? But like, we know another dog trainer who's fantastic, by the way, and he's older than we are, but moves better than we do, for the record.
Well,
okay.
I disagree with that. I've seen my moves.
Come on, dude. You haven't seen all Casey's moves, baby. I'm here to tell you. You know what I mean? This dude wakes up every day ready to go. All right. But here's the deal is that,
I need to challenge Casey to a dance off? Is that what you're saying?
I would pay. Okay. For those of
that's
you listening.
That's how I know I've drank enough whiskey. Because I just challenged someone to a fucking dance off.
Dude,
that's
how I know. I'm telling you right now, this dude, if you guys knew who we were talking about, you would just look at Chris and be like, really?
So apparently this is very good.
It is very good. However, here's the whole idea, right?
Sorry about that.
No, you're totally good. Is that at the end of the day, like we want to make sure that what we're doing makes sense for our lifestyle, right? And so if I want a dog, and we've talked about this, Heather and I have talked about this, like I will go back to nothing probably but bulldogs in my retirement, right? And as long as, I am choosing breeders who are breeding the way that I want the dog to be bred, right? I want temperament to be, really, really heavily emphasized. One of the things that we've seen, and I brought Frenchies up earlier for this purpose, one of the things that we've seen in French bulldogs over the last couple of years since they've become the most popular breed in America is that we have a lot of Frenchies that have kind of like what I would call an old school pit bull soul, right? Where they just want to fight everything that moves. You know, look at that big head nod. Like you've encountered this too. We've seen this, right? Where like
I call them assholes.
Sure, you're allowed, right? Like
but yeah,
but they just want to fight everything that moves. You know what I mean? And that's its own problem in a society. And this is really important, right? Like your training should be molded around the breed of your dog 100% of the time, right?
If you want to make it fun and easy.
I would even say that like if you want to be a legit person to your dog, you don't want to take a square peg and put it in a round hole.
Right. You make it easy and fun for them. Hey,
sure.
Do you want to sit in this hole that you were designed for?
Right.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, it's like, you know, one of the breeds that has like a really kind of iffy kind of breed profile in society these days is like the Dachshund, right?
Oh, I love a wiener.
Oh, I know you love wieners, bud. It's no big deal. You were in the Air Force, but here's the deal, right?
I wasn't in the Navy.
That's true. That's true. But like you guys hold hands. It's no big deal. Like, but we appreciate you guys.
Sorry, they were smarter.
Look, I can't say anything about that. I think the red crayons taste like cherries. Anyway, but the reality of the situation, folks that are listening to this that know are gonna know, right? But
if you've never been in the military, if you don't have military families, understand this is a loving relationship.
It is.
This is
ongoing. This is one of those if you know you know situations.
If it's unfortunate that Marines still think that they have a place, and you know, us Air Force and Army and Marines have to
look. We just look at our enemy across the battlefield. Everybody else just, you know, shoots at them from afar. Anyway, but the point is this,
Heather
right?
is giving us terrible looks.
But the look, man, I don't want to talk. Look, you know, like I don't want to talk about a producer right now because like she was in the submarine force and those guys hide for a living. So like I don't want to talk about it anyway. But the point is this, right? Oh, I just got thrown at. It's not a big deal, right? But you guys were here for that. That was abuse.
That's called assault.
I mean, everywhere else, right? Come on, assault, a law degree. But here's the deal: is man, we did a lot to get back to this point. But here's
where
the deal.
are we at?
I don't know, man. We're drinking. That's where we are. But take this for what it is. You really do want to mold your training toward that dog's predispositions, right? So whether you got a herding dog or whether you got a non-sporting breed or whether you have a toy breed, right? Like all the training gets customized per breed. This is never a one size fits all. You don't do one size fits all. I don't do one size fits all. I don't teach one size fits all. If you talk to a dog training company and they go, we're going to put you guys in this thing that everybody goes in to begin with. Everybody starts here. You're probably wrong.
You know what I've been thinking of lately in the way I describe it? Objective versus subjective.
Oh, we do subjective training all day long.
So objective training, your dog has to hit this mark. Your dog has to hit this mark. Your dog has to hit this mark. Subjective training is, I'm going to teach your dog what they need to know. Or, right?
I want to meet your dog where they are and find out what they want. Like find out how to communicate with them and what they want.
And even objective training should do that. But I think,
I don't know, man. I think
the subjective training, and this is an idea that I've just been kind of toying around with, but the subjective training idea is what we've talked about before, is training the dog in hand. What does this dog need, right? And you don't have to be a dog trainer to ask that question. If you're a dog owner, what does this dog in my house need from me?
Sure.
And again, I go back to the idea of this is a relationship. You don't necessarily have to be the alpha, but you do need to be the leader of the relationship.
Sure.
And when you are the leader of the relationship, you have to understand you have to ask, what does this dog need to be successful?
Right. Right.
And that's kind of what we're talking about this entire time.
And so this is a great question to kind of like piggyback on this. And like, I've got an answer, you have an answer, but let's talk about this like in detail, right? What does any breed, and this is really important, there should be some criteria around this, I'm sure, right? What does any breed need as base concepts in order to be successful, right? So like when we're talking about like engagement, drive expression, like what are those things that any breed needs, right? Because like the question of the day is, how do we train based on breed?
I think this is a really, really great point for us to stop and say, this is what we're going to talk about next time.
And we
to
may
be honest.
Yeah.
I think this is a really, because
that's expanded.
What you're talking about is in depth.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is, what does your dog need?
Mm-hmm.
What does your dog want?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the drives
Mm-hmm.
that your dog has?
I agree.
What are the things that your dog is saying internally saying, no, I need to do this. I need to chase this.
Because let's not bullshit and say that every breed that you've ever seen, every breed that has a pedigree, right? Like if regardless of whether you're an AKC person or a CKC person or a UKC person or an FCI person, those are the four largest kind of registries in the United States. And then we have things like ABKC and, all kinds of other weird, well, registries are where we keep pedigrees, right? Like that's the whole idea of having like a papered dog, is that I know papered, right? Like I know that this dog came from this dog, came from this dog, came from this dog. That's a pedigree, right? It's a blood lineage idea. It's a eugenic idea. It's a noble idea, right? Like I would make the argument that pedigreed dogs go back to ideas of nobility whenever we were breeding people of noble rank in order to sustain noble rank, right?
And that's the way I see it as well,
right?
Which is maybe why I have an antipathy.
Animosity, I think, is what you really have. Yeah. But take it for what it is. There's some value in having good pedigree as well, right? Like in known outcome, right? I can guarantee you, right, that a Labrador will retrieve if it's a purebred lab, right? Like I can guarantee you that a golden retriever will play fetch if it's a purebred golden retriever. I believe that a golden retriever is born happy and will die happy if it's a golden retriever.
If
right?
not, there's something wrong.
Right. You know what I mean? And so pedigree is helpful. And that's where I don't, to your earlier point, hey, absolutely swing by the shelter, see if there's something there for you. But what I will tell you is I'm also a pedigree guy because we have consistency of outcome. You know what I mean?
So what I will say to that, and just a brief hint at please go visit your shelter.
Yeah.
If I were a person who I've always wanted a golden retriever.
You might find one.
I've always wanted a golden retriever or a Great Dane, right? My sister, I'll take my sister.
Odds are low,
my sister has always wanted a Great Dane. Go to the shelter and just say, hey,
do you have
shelter person? When you get a Great Dane, call me.
Exactly.
Right? That's an easy way to kind of kill two birds with one stone.
I agree.
I apologize for getting on a soapbox. But
don't get me wrong.
Evan and I have both spent time in the shelters.
Man, we spend a lot of time.
There is a reason we are doing this podcast.
Yeah. And take it for what
and I don't
is.
Want to shy away from it.
No, and take it for what it is, right? Like we spend as a team, right? At least 2 hours in the shelter every week. Everybody that works for K-Pro Canine,
which is one of the reasons I love your company, which is one of the reasons I reach out to you.
It's almost like a B Corp idea, right?
Yes.
Is like, hey man, we're benefiting folks. Like we're getting out there and we're doing a thing, right? And that comes from that portion of me where I was in the shelter at 15 years old, just doing what we call the shit show, right? Which is scrubbing kennels, making sure dogs are clean, bathing dogs, making sure that, they're ready to be seen on a Saturday. That was my job starting at 15, at Fort Pierce Humane Society. I grew up in Fort Pierce, Florida. You guys can go look this up, man. I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet, or you can find it or call them and find out where their records are. But starting at 15 years old, man, I'm in there scrubbing the shit off kennel walls and bathing dogs so that they can become more adoptable on a Saturday. That was my whole job starting out. Right. And I look back at that and I go, man, if I could have gotten paid enough to live a life just doing the shit show and doing adoption, like doing adoption counseling, I would still be there, right? It's a massively, and
unfortunately, there's no money in that,
right? And this is a side to that idea, right? Is that like, man, I really wish that CEOs and directors of shelters would look at their kennel attendants with more value. I wish that boards of shelters could look at their kennel attendants with more value, because that's where the work's done. It's not done in the office. It's not done at the head of your organization. It's not done there. It's just not done there. The same way that now at K-Pro Canine, the bulk of the training work, because like we have anywhere from like, something like 90 to 110 dogs on average a month in training. That's not all on me. You know what I mean? Like that work doesn't just get aggregated to Evan. You know what I mean? Do I have oversight on all those things? Sure I do. You know what I mean? But like, man, oh man, like I couldn't, you know what I mean? You should be looking at that. You know what I mean? And taking, and, like really, really looking. And again, like getting back to this idea of training based on breed, you need to make like real concessions for breed,
concessions is a cool word.
Yeah.
Talk about what you mean by concessions.
Yeah. So like, I'm not going to look at a a cavy, right? God knows I can't put those words together in the right
King
order
Charles
ever.
Cavalier.
I think you're right. Spaniel. Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Right. It's too many words in a row. Thank you very much, AKC. But like, whenever I look at this, right, like I cannot in any real way expect that dog to do the function of a Mastiff. I can't expect that dog
or a boxer
or any of those other ideas,
absolutely.
Right? I need to look at the dog.
Made for that.
I need to look at the dog that I have and figure out what we want
and what they are made. Not only what they're made for, what can they bring to your life?
Absolutely.
What can they bring to your existence?
Exactly. How are they a value add to you and not a detractor to your experience? And this is like massively important to me, because just like I don't want to be everybody's dog trainer that we talked about earlier, I don't want every dog breed that I've ever seen either. I don't want to live with a Tibetan Mastiff. I don't want to live with a Congo dog. I don't want to live with a Central Asian Shepherd.
I've sent you every Malinois that is called.
You sure have, because you're like, I don't want those things in my house. And I'm like, I got guys. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of the mouse, right? But like no kid or Dutch Shepherds or, Czech raised German Shepherds or
those long-haired ones are beautiful.
The long-haired ones are gorgeous, right? But even in those, right? Like there's a difference. I tell people this all the time. There's 3 predominant lines of German Shepherd in the United States. There's what I would call the American German Shepherd, that is that big saddleback kind of, hey, we saw these, at least my generation in Gen X saw these as kids, big saddleback shepherd that stood next to the police officer on the corner, right? Perfect, right? And then we have Czech shepherds and we have DDR line shepherds, right? And again, I won't butcher this, but like the old East German line of shepherds, right? Like this is before the fall of the Berlin Wall. Like this was the line of shepherds they used on the other side of the wall to like really guard that thing, right? And so like we have these working dogs that are out there. What I find in the folks that call us for training is like Czech line shepherds and DDR line shepherds that are mixed with American line shepherds that like, hey man, I'm here to tell you, I got you, that I'm here to tell you, right? Like these are not a good house dog. These are dogs that were bred to do work on a regular basis with no real emphasis on relationship. And so these are massively independent animals.
Independence.
Yeah.
Independence is one of the things that I emphasize when I talk to my clients is this dog was bred to be independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of you.
Coonhounds.
Do they want a relationship with you?
Yeah.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Do they love you? Do they want to be close to you? Do they want you to love them? Of course. Yes, they do. They need it.
Sure.
But they also need that opportunity to go out and be themselves
Yeah.
and to be independent.
and that's
in
where-
today's society, that's
Yeah.
tough, right?
No, it is.
Like
Especially for people.
if you live where I live, right? I live in a neighborhood. I can't let my dog go out and just be independent.
Yeah,
I can't.
That, do I?
I want you to, but you can't.
Yeah.
And so you have to find ways, right? Like I go out and I find these little areas out in the middle of nowhere, and I let Sydney Michael out and go just, hey, this is your time, man,
Anytime.
to go be independent.
Right here. Anytime.
But
for
it
your
is
dogs.
it's very, very important
Yeah.
for each one of our dogs, as it is for us.
And that's a big deal. And as we wrap this subject up, right? Like, yeah, training based on breed is massively important. You have to take in consideration the breed's predilection for behaviors, right? Herding dogs are going to herd, right? Sporting dogs are going
Protection
to
dogs
are
are
going
gonna
to hunt,
protect.
right? Like, protection dogs are going to protect. And some of these dogs that used to be herding breeds and now are like, what we would call like a working breed in the United States is, really down to military law enforcement application in a lot of ways. We don't expand that umbrella past that much, but like all those things are massively, massively important to, what you expect out of your dog. If you have a terrier, you can expect that dog to want to go to ground and go to vermin and dig in your backyard and do crazy things.
If there's a way to sneak out of their backyard, they're not
gone.
being bad.
No, they're gone.
They're acting on their instincts.
So, and again, we talk about this idea in wrap up, right? Like we talk about this idea of, like whether a dog does good or bad things, dogs just exhibit behavior. They don't do good or bad things, right? They don't have moral compasses. They can't.
In a dog's mind, there is nothing bad.
Right. There's
It's
just behavior, right? So, like if your terrier digs out from underneath your fence to go do a different thing, it's not doing something bad. It's just doing something you
playing
didn't
on their
expect,
instincts.
right?
So
And
if you know their dog, if you know your dog,
Right.
you know what to expect.
And with toy breeds, right? Like when we teach sit, easy. When we teach down, oftentimes like we have to put them on a surface and break the plane of that surface in order for them to achieve down to like lure them in, because their head and neck ratio to the rest of their body is so long that like if they're standing straight up, they can reach their toes with their mouth. That doesn't work in luring,
So we're
right?
getting scientific again.
Exactly, right?
Love
but like take this for what it is, right? Like when we look at this, molding your training over, right? Really specifically to the breed of dog that you have, right? Learning to live with the breed of the dog you have. I live with 2 Belgian Malinois. When they're out in my house, they shark the whole time. They just run in circles around my couch, run in circles around my dining room table, run in circles around my kitchen island. They just move the entire time they're out. Does that make them bad dogs? No, that makes them what they are, right? There are other high drive breeds out there that do the same thing. I've seen Australian Shepherds produce Malinois-like behavior, right? Where like, man, I just got to be doing something all the time. I'm really high drive. I've seen American Field Version Labs and Golden Retrievers produce the same behavior where, man, I've got to do something all the time. I've seen Pit Bulls and all kinds of other breeds of dogs produce the same kinds of behavior where, man, I don't know why I got to do it. I got to do it. And so like, molding your training around that, giving them the drive expression that they need in order to bring their thought process back down into focus so that they can really engage the task at hand. Really very important. Making sure that you are pushing into their breed focus is really important. Pugs, great companion breed, right?
God, I love pugs.
You know what I mean?
Can I give a shout out to a pug?
Hit it.
I love you. Frank,
you know who you are.
Frank, I love you. Frank, if your mom is watching, please tell your mom that we need to hang out.
I need to hang out more with you, man. I've never had a pug in training. Beside the point. All right, beside the point. We'll talk about it later. But here's the deal. As we wrap up, like absolutely, you should be absolutely molding, shaping, designing, innovating in a lot of ways your training process to the breed at hand. You know, like there is
I agree, but how do we make that easy for people? How do we take that idea, that
That's a good
concept
question.
that you have, right?
Yeah.
Which I agree completely.
Yeah.
I'm 1,000% on board. How do we make that easy for people that have a pug?
All right. Good question. Here's what I would say. I take this for what it is. Cesar Millan was a magnificently famous trainer,
Love him.
for a very, very long time. And I think that Cesar Millan did a lot for dog advocacy. One of the things that he said, I don't agree with everything that he's ever said, right? But one of the things that he said that I'm like, actually, Cesar, I think you got it on that one, right? Is that he looks at that and he goes, let's look at these things in order, right? It's a dog first, right? So
it has to be.
If we fulfill the dog nature, then we can fulfill the breed nature. If we fulfill the breed nature, then we can fulfill the individual nature. I think those things are honest. I think that Cesar just gave voice to what many, many dog trainers knew, is that dogs are dogs. They're opportunistic predators, whether it's a pug or a Great Dane or anything in between, right? Dogs are dogs first. And then they're the breed, right? Then they're the individual after that. And that's what I would wrap up with, right? Is like fulfill a dog's needs, fulfill the breed's needs, and then fulfill the individual needs. Every individual in every breed has its own ideas of what is fulfilling and happy and healthy for them. In some, I'm famous in the working dog community for saying like every breeding of Malinois produces a litter of Malinois, and one of those dogs is not going to be a working dog. It's going to be a pet quality dog, fulfilling that individual need apart from the breed, I think is massively important. Fulfilling the breed need apart from the dog, like the species need, I think is massively important. And I think fulfilling the species need is just as important, right? So make sure that, you're looking at your dog like a dog, not a human. Make sure that you understand that and I would liken breed to culture. Make sure that you understand the cultural inference or desire of the breed that you are looking at, right? And then treat the individual, right? We've all had this experience in life, and this is the way that I would come down to it, right? Is like species, breed, individual, right? Look at the entirety of the idea first. Hey, I'm a human. I know that I need to eat, I need to drink, and I need to eliminate, right? Like just to live on a base notion, right? And then past that, I go, but I'm this kind of human, right? I'm an American. So I have specific cultural influence that comes into play here, right? And while in America, we may be a little oppositional in some of those cultures, right? Like take that and just realize it's culture, right? And then the individual. Well, everybody has specific nuances to what they think as opposed to what their neighbor thinks, right? Dogs, I think, are the same way, right? Where just because this GSP or this Belgian Malinois or this German Shepherd or this Doberman or this Canton de Soulière or this French Bulldog thinks this doesn't mean that I get to broadly apply that. We also have to look at the individual, right? So looking at those criteria, I would say, dog first, breed second, individual last, right? In the way that you approach designing your husbandry, your environment, your specific engagement with the dog. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I know you do, man, because we hang out, but take it for what it is. I also think that, and guys, that for you at home, and listening today, that is the goal, right? Is that we take all those criteria when we're training a dog into account so that we have a solid and continual slide into exactly what we want to have, right? making it fun and helpful for the dog, absolutely along the way. We have to do that. Chris, I love that point that you made earlier. But the reality of the situation is that we have to feed the base psychology first as a dog. What do dogs need? They need to range every day. They need to look to find food. They need to have some kind of idea about what they're doing, right? Like they need to have purpose. Then we have to feed the breed. Well, what does that breed do? Okay.
When it goes down to that purpose.
Yeah.
Give your dog a purpose.
Sure. Purpose is really massively important, but man, we've got to just look at all those ideas and nuances in order to absolutely create a training program that makes sense. Last thoughts. What do you got today?
Think about your lifestyle before you get a dog.
I
Get
agree.
a dog that is going to match your lifestyle. Don't get a dog that you want to match their lifestyle. Get a dog that each dog has a unique blend of or breed of what they have been designed for.
Yeah.
Find one that fits your lifestyle.
Agreed. Guys, I would absolutely mirror that idea that like, hey, listen, when you're looking at training based on breed, absolutely, you got to look at what the purpose of the dog is, where it came from, what the application is going to be. Look for the aptitudes in the dog as well, right? Like, does this dog have the aptitude to do the thing that I'm doing, right? Look at your lifestyle. And here's what I would add to that. Don't buy an aspirational breed, right? Like I've seen a lot of clients over the years.
Don't get a dog because because you want to.
Because I'm gonna do, right?
No.
I'm gonna do a thing, and so I'm gonna grab this breed because I'm gonna do a thing, right? Don't do that. It's a faux pas. Be careful.
Yep.
And other than that, guys, like just make sure that you're looking at the individual themselves and making sure that you are giving them what they need in order to be successful. As a business owner, as a boss, Chris, you can agree with this as well. But like, I only succeed when my people succeed. And so like setting them up proactively for success is the real answer, right? So guys, hey, join us next time on Whiskey and Wolves, right? As we continue to debunk the bunk and dog training. And dude, don't forget to down below, like, subscribe, and follow, right? Like
send us questions.
Look, we need your support. Send us questions. We want to answer the questions that you have here on the North Shore of New Orleans and all over the United States and all over the world. Thank you for joining us here at Whiskey and Wolves. Don't forget that these guys over at 7-3 Distilling with Whiskey Tree Bourbon Whiskey.
We went far.
That's
why I'm so
right?
drunk.
Yeah, you're a little drunk, dude. And like, we're like 2/3 in on this deal. So like, understand, guys, like as you're looking at this today, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, I know, dude. And don't forget in any way to like really delve into the breed of dog that you're buying before you get one. Even in your shelter leanings, man, make sure that you understand what's going on in that dog before you grab one. I would push that far.
I agree.
Like make sure that you have a lifestyle that is conducive.
That you get a shelter dog, you're getting a shelter dog.
And the last thing that I'll tell you, as always, right? Like make sure that you
got issues.
I always got issues, man. Don't worry about
But you're a good man, right?
I try hard, dude. High five. Right?
Dogs with issues are good dogs.
Dude, dogs with issues are great dogs, man. But like, look at that, understand the emphasis, and let's go from there. Guys, as always, train happy and cheers on Whiskey and Wolves.